So thank you for being here. And now we start the process. And so we're going on talking about this law today. We are starting with the Customs. Customs Act 1962. Now, this is one act which cannot be studied alone, like GST. CGST Act alone cannot be read. It has to be read along with the IGST Act. Same is this also. Customs Act cannot be read alone. It has to be read along with the Custom Tariff Act, right? So these are two acts which we are going to cover up. How to have the full view, I don't know. Can you see the full board?
Yes, sir.
And customs law. I'm not giving the name Customs Act. I'm writing customs law. And in this, we have two things. One is Customs Act. Another is Customs Tariff Act. So two acts have to be read together, right? There cannot be anything independent. Okay. So here, in Custom Tariff Act, what is given? Custom Tariff Act is about all statutory provisions for various types of duties. So description of all the duties as far as custom law is concerned, that is given under the Custom Tariff Act. And only for your reference, I'll give you number one, basic custom duty. Then additional custom duty. Then a special additional custom duty. Then protective duty. Then safeguard duty. Then duty against subsidy. Then anti-dumping duty. Then IGST is also there. So many duties. And all statutory provisions regarding duties are covered under the Custom Tariff Act. So without studying Custom Tariff Act, we will never get to know about these duties. So that is also important part. As far as Customs Act is concerned, there are 160 plus sections, more than 160 sections. Now this can be divided in two parts. First part is up to section 90. And then we have 91 onwards. I've intentionally divided that in two parts. As such, there is no bifurcation, but there is a reason for which I have done the bifurcation as far as any exam is concerned, except LLB, where the orientation is about filing the appeals, arrest, provisions are there. So except LLB, in every professional exam, your focus is in this part up to section 90. So this is not relevant for the purpose of exam, whether it is CA or CS or CMA or whichever exam it may be. This portion, right? So this portion for the purpose of exam, this may carry a weightage of 10%. And this will carry a weightage of 90%. Why? Simple reason, some practical question will always be there in the exam out of the customs. And all the possibilities of a practical question can be framed either on valuation or on baggage or on duty drawback. Everything is covered here. As far as provisions after section 91 are concerned, no practical question can be framed. Reason number one. Number two, all operative provisions, that is regarding assessment, types of duties, refunds, demands, then warehousing, clearance provisions, whatever you think of, everything is covered in this area. So all relevant important provisions for the exam are covered in this area. This is, if you have a time, do cover, but otherwise you can simply keep it aside. Still there is no risk. I have seen number of papers where not even 1 mark question has been there from this portion. Not even 1 mark, right? So for the purpose of sake of knowledge, do read that. But as of now, you're already running against the time. I will not recommend you to focus on this. Focus on this, and this I will ensure that every part of the topic is clear to you. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Understood?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All important provisions are going to be here. In addition to the act, what else is important for us? The most important thing will be about valuation rules. There are separate valuation rules for import and export. Separate valuation rules are there, right? And again, as far as exam orientation is concerned, 100% chances are question is going to be from the import valuation. There can hardly be any question out of export valuation, but since provisions are very small, better to know those provisions also. Then another thing which may be relevant is the baggage rules. Number 3, duty drawback rules. So 3 rules are important under the customs law. Number 1, the most important one, valuation. Number 2, baggage. Number 3, duty drawback. So this is also the priority order in which you should be knowing the provisions, right? So what we are going to cover in this chapter of customs that I have already explained. So if you have any question, you can ask me now. Any question? Can I clear this?
Yes, sir.
I've sent you the document,
Yes, sir. We have received.
Customs Act,
Yes, sir.
but that is not complete. Okay. So I was working on that, and when the time was running closer, so I've simply forwarded. but don't take a printout of that. I'm going to give you complete document by tomorrow. Okay, so then you can take a printout or you can refer it on the laptop or phone, either way. So as far as customs is concerned, what does it deal with? What does it deal with?
Import and exports.
Import and export. Deals with levy and collection of duty on import what does it deal with?
Only goods.
Levy and collection. It does not talk about what you can export, what you cannot export, what you can import, what you cannot import. Right? It is not the complete law about import export. So that's why we have to be very clear that this is only about duty. You know import export policy or not known? Exim policy.
No,
Have you
sir.
heard of that?
Heard it.
That is one of the document which provides what can be imported, what cannot be imported. Broad guidelines are laid down therein. Collection of duties under this section. Actual remittances are governed by FEMA. So there is no single law for regulating import export. There is a cluster of laws, all taken together. Those are provisions relating to import and export, right? So what is in the Customs Act? It doesn't talk about import export. It is only restricted to number one, levy, number two, collection. And beyond that, this does not go. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
The
Yes, sir.
purpose of Customs Act. It is not import export. Only collection of duty on import and export and certain matters related thereto. I've given you different laws, right?
Yes, sir.
Exim policy. This export import policy is framed under another act. You know the name of that act? Foreign Trade Development Regulation Act. This exim policy is framed under this act, right? Another law which is relevant, that is FEMA. And this is also not the end of laws applicable in relation to import export. Broadly, these are three things. But other than these three also, there are number of laws. How many authorities are concerned? Authorities. As many laws, as many authorities? Isn't it? As far as customs is concerned, which is the main authority? Central Board of Indirect Taxes. As far as FEMA is concerned, which is the main authority? Which is the main authority?
Okay.
Enforcement Directorate plus RBI. Right? As far as FTDRA is concerned, which is the main authority? Director General of Foreign Trade, right? So be clear that this act is not a complete law about import export. This only talks about levy and collection of duty, nothing more than that. I hope it is clear.
Yes, sir.
What is the meaning of the word goods? Act deals with goods, right? It does not deal with services. Services are also imported and exported, but this act deals with goods only. What is the meaning of the word goods? Anyone?
Taxable goods.
Hmm?
Movable property.
That is not applicable for customs. The term goods is defined here. Section 2, subsection 22. Section 2, subsection 22. And this is inclusive definition, but the wordings are so broad that nothing else is left out. See the last clause, number E, what it says? Any other kind of movable property. After that, what else is left? So really nothing is left. Though the language is inclusive, but the wordings are exhaustive. After that, nothing more is left out. Okay, so see here. Now this can be divided in two parts. Specific and general, right? I'll show you the board little later. Okay, so it can be divided in two parts, specific and general. Clause A to D will be covered in specific. Number A. What is number A? Right there.
Vessels, aircraft.
Right there on the left side. Number A. Vessels,
Aircrafts and vehicles.
aircraft,
And vehicles.
and vehicles. What is number B?
Stores.
Is stores. What is number C?
Baggage.
That is baggage. What is number D?
Currency and negotiable instruments.
Currency and negotiable instruments. What is clause E?
Any other kind of movable property.
Any other kind of movable property. Okay. Now have a look at this. Whatever I have written. Okay. So four things are specific: vessels, aircraft, vehicle, stores, baggage, currency and negotiable instruments, and here we have any other kind of movable property. Okay. So I hope this you have already drawn.
Yes, sir.
Now see here. The term stores and baggage, rather all these four there are specific provisions for those. For ABC, there are specific provisions. Currency and negotiable instrument, this is referred here, but it is not going to be discussed again in the entire act. And all other movable property, these are governed by general provisions. See, here I've done clause A to C. There are specific provisions for those. Currency and negotiable instrument, that is not going to be discussed again in the entire act. First and last reference. Then general things, anything other than specific provision, those are general provisions, right? And majority of the provisions are general. Now you know what is the applicability of general provisions and specific provisions, right? So specific provisions will always have overriding effect over general provisions. So if there is a contradiction in general provisions and specific provisions, what is applicable? In case of general goods, these will be applicable. In case of specific goods, a special law will always have overriding effect over general law. Okay. That is already known to you, right? Now, when I say these are specific provisions, now let's see what are the specific provisions there are. The term baggage. First, we'll see baggage. Then we'll come back to stores. See here. Includes unaccompanied baggage but does not include motor vehicles. So the term baggage is already defined under section 2, subsection 3. Section 2, subsection 3, right? More provisions are there, but I'll tell you little later. Right now, let's go to the definition of the term stores and see. Section 2, subsection 38. This is defining stores. Right? Now, this is not the end. Now, let us go to the beginning. See here. Provisions regarding these are specific provisions in relation to baggage. 77 to 81. And then we have specific provisions for stores. See here. Section 85 to 90. These are specific provisions for stores. Now see here. The term goods is defined under section 2, subsection 22. There are specific provisions, there are general provisions. In total, there are 5 clauses. Clause A says vessel, aircraft, vehicle. Then number 2 is stores, number 3 is baggage, number 4 currency and negotiable, number 5 is any other kind of movable property. Right. So goods means certainly movable. A movable property cannot be imported, cannot be exported. So certainly it is immovable, or rather talking about movables, but those are still divided in 2 categories. These are specific and these are general. Majority of the provisions are general, because here you see the list. How many are specific provisions? For stores, you have these 6 sections. For the baggage, you have specific 5 sections only. Majority of the provisions are general provisions, right? So everywhere general provisions are applicable, but when there is a specific provision given in relation to specific things, those will have overriding effect. Is this point clear? Tell me, is it clear or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now I'm going to tell you something more about every point. Now see here. Vessel, aircraft, and vehicle. Vessel, aircraft, and vehicle. Divided in two parts. These are brought to India only for loading, unloading of goods. And or embarking and disembarking of passengers. Either vessel or vehicle or aircraft. Any example of vehicle?
Ship, sir.
Hmm?
Ship.
Ship. Ship is already in the vessel. I'm talking about a vehicle. There used to be a bus and train between India and Pakistan. Remember that?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Right?
sir.
That is a vehicle. Right? Today you want to travel to Nepal, you can take your car. Right? So that is also vehicle. So vehicle is a broad category. Vessel, aircraft, that is one category. Vehicle is the broadest category. And you must have seen lots of foreign embassy cars. Isn't it? Those are actually brought to India. So question is, what for these are being brought to India? Brought to India only for, this is a very important word, only for. Right? And then brought to India for being used in India. For what purpose it is being brought in, that will make a difference. If it is being brought in only for this purpose, then not treated as goods. And where the duty is applicable? Only on the goods. And in this case, these are not treated as goods. Effectively, there is so why there is no duty? Answer is here. If the vessel or aircraft or vehicle is brought to India only for this purpose, then it will not be treated as goods. And Custom Act deals with the goods only. Matter ends. Question of duty does not arise. Okay. Now, if it is brought to India for being used in India, in this case, these are treated as goods. What will be the effect?
Duty will be levied.
Duty will be applicable, right? Prima facie duty is there, but there are specific exemptions are also available. So if the airlines are importing, then they are required to give a bond. They are not required to pay the duty because it is being brought on the lease basis. So in this case, unless exempted otherwise, duty is attracted. Is it clear?
Sir.
Right. So when there will be duty on vehicle, vessel, aircraft, and when there will be no duty? Answer is very, very simple and clear. If those are treated as goods, there will be duty. If those are not treated as goods, there will be no duty. Isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So when those are treated as goods, when not treated as goods, this chart is going to help you. So first of all, the act deals with the import and export of goods. Import into India, export from India. So what is the meaning of the word India?
Twelve nautical miles.
Place of supply. Sir.
No.
Mhm.
The term India see, defined. India includes territorial waters of India. Right? So what is territorial waters? There are different purposes for which we are defining. So since we're talking about duty, the act is concerned about the duty. That's why we are talking about India includes the territorial waters. But otherwise, India includes even custom waters also. Indian custom waters given here. So this Indian custom water means a water extending into the sea up to the limit of exclusive economic zone under section 7 of the Territorial Waters and so and so Act. So up to what limit that is? So India for Customs Act and generally. For Customs Act, this is defined under section 2, subsection 27, and India includes Indian territorial waters. What I've written? India includes Indian territorial waters. I'm going to show you, just wait for a moment. Right? Now, what is Indian territorial water? So territorial water is defined there, not here. Okay. So includes Indian territorial water. Then Indian territorial water, this extends up to 12 nautical miles. See here. For Customs Act, when we say customs means for the purpose of duty, India includes Indian territorial water. And territorial water extends up to 12 nautical miles from the coastline. Nautical miles means how much? One nautical mile means what?
So 16.6.
Hmm? One nautical mile is equal to 1.8 kilometers. 1.8 kilometers. Mile is different story. This is nautical mile, so this is different, right? So mile is 1600 meters. Nautical mile is 1800 meters. So 1.8 kilometers equal to 1 nautical mile. Okay. So India extends up to this. Now, in the term of import export, I'll explain you this again. In general, India extends up to 200 nautical miles from coastline. Right. So 200, this is automatically in two parts: Indian territorial waters, that is 12 nautical miles, and then remaining, that is called Indian custom waters, that is 188 nautical miles. Right. Now, applicability of the provisions of the Companies Act, what, or rather the Customs Act, what is the applicability? As far as this is concerned, this area, that is up to 12 nautical miles from the coastline, all provisions are applicable. All provisions are applicable, right? So 12 nautical miles, it is covered here also. What is in this area? What is the applicability of provisions of the Customs Act? In this area, provisions regarding search, seizure, arrest, and confiscation are applicable. What are the provisions applicable? Provisions relating to search, seizure, arrest, confiscation. Those provisions are applicable in this area. Right. Now, if these are applicable, all other provisions are not. These are attracted only when there is a reason for doubt. And if there is no reason for doubt, this is also referred as a free transit zone. This is also referred as the exclusive Indian economic zone. Two more names for this area. For this. So this is Indian custom water. Other two names are free transit zone. So as such, India is having control up to 200 nautical miles, but any vessel or aircraft passing through that area does not require any approval from Government of India. That is a free transit zone. Only transit. You cannot stop there. You cannot carry on any commercial activity because India is up to there. But for passing through that area, no approval or sanction is required from Government of India. Right. Another is, it is also referred as exclusive Indian economic zone. So any economic activity within that area except a transit is allowed only to government of India or a citizen of India. Nobody else can carry on any commercial activity in that area, right? So we can add the name of those two names also for this. That is free transit zone. It is only transit. You cannot stop, cannot carry on any commercial activity in that area. Why not carry on? Because this is also called as exclusive Indian economic zone. Just 1 minute, there is somebody of the government. Then it is also called as exclusive Indian economic zone. It means in this area, any commercial activity can be carried on either by government of India or a citizen of India. Any person from outside India cannot carry on a commercial activity in this area unless authorized by the government. Right? So this is the meaning of the term India for the purpose of Customs Act. Is it clear? Or some complication?
Yes, sir.
Very clear.
Now we move to the next part. We have talked about goods. We have talked about what is called India. Now we'll talk about what is import. Then we'll talk about what is export. So the object of the act becomes clear. So levy and collection of duty on import and export of goods, import into and export from. So what is the meaning of import? What is the meaning of export that we should be knowing? Just a minute. I need to fill up some ink in the marker. Otherwise it is getting lighter. You know how much ink is consumed in one class? Any idea? This is one bottle meant for hardly 6 or 7 classes. That's all. So coming back here again. Now we talked about that the Customs Act deals with what? Levy and collection of duty. So what is levy? What is collection? That I'm going to explain later on. But on what? On goods. And what incident? What is the taxable event? Taxable event is import and export. Import of goods into India and export of goods from India. What is called India? That we have already talked about. Okay. Now, what is the meaning of the word import? What is import? This is a process. It is not an event. It's a long-term process, right? And for this process, first requirement is goods should originate from a place that is outside India. First requirement. Goods should originate from a place which is already outside India. So India is up to what limit?
12 nautical miles. 200. Okay.
Right. Because up to 200 it is India. Any commercial activity in that area can be carried on only by government of India or a person who's a citizen of India. So for first thing is the goods should originate from a place beyond India. So India is up to 200 nautical miles. Okay. And area which is the Indian custom water, that is also a free transit zone. right? So as long as goods are not entering into Indian custom water, the Customs Act is not applicable, except for search, seizure, arrest that we talked about. So in general, you can say that provisions of the Act will not be applicable as long as goods are outside the Indian territorial waters. So provisions do not apply goods are outside the Indian territorial waters, right? Generally, if there is a reason for suspicion or doubt, certainly provisions regarding search, seizure, arrest, confiscation are applicable. Okay, so in general, the provisions of the Customs Act will not be attracted till goods enter into Indian custom water, or rather Indian territorial waters. Now see here. Import begins when goods enter into Indian territorial waters. We don't say that it is when the goods enter into Indian territorial water, that is an import. No, we have said import begins when the goods enter into Indian territorial waters. That is just the beginning of import, right? Quite possible therefrom goods are sent back. The question of assessment, question of duty does not arise. That's why we are saying import begins, right?
Sir, high sea sales, how they are taking out, sir? Taking care of.
Out high seas means beyond 200 nautical miles.
Okay, sir.
Any commercial activity within the 200 nautical mile, that will be governed by Indian laws, right? High seas means beyond 200 nautical miles. Okay, so import begins when the goods enter into Indian territorial waters, right? Now suppose there are some goods which are already in the sea and you buy the goods, right? And goods come to India, what will happen? Whether, see the first point, whether that condition is satisfied or not. If you are buying something in high seas, it means goods are originating from where?
Outside India.
Certainly outside India, right? And after buying that, if you divert that to some other country, whether it will be an import or not?
No.
It will not be, because the goods are not entering into
India.
Right? So import begins only when goods enter into Indian territorial waters, right? This is the beginning. Underline the word begins. Import continues as long as goods are under the control of custom authorities. So goods have landed at the custom port or custom airport. It does not mean import is complete. Import is said to be continuing as long as goods are under the control of custom authorities. What is said in the first line? It is a process. It is going to take time. So landing of the goods is not the end of import. For a layman, you can say import is over when the goods have landed in India, but not for the purpose of customs. So imports is said to be continuing as long as goods are under the control of custom authorities. And then import is complete only when first is applicable duty has been paid. Now your question can be, is it necessary that duty is payable every time? We have already said applicable. So if applicable is 0, then 0 is payable. Number 2, an order for removal. An order for removal, and that is called as out of customs. This is import. So import begins when the goods originate from outside India. Number 2, as long as goods are outside the Indian territorial waters, provisions are not attracted. Therefore, duty related provisions will get attracted only when the goods enter into Indian custom waters. And the import continues as long as goods are under the control of custom authorities. And up to what time those are under the control? Last point. Import is complete only when, number 1, applicable duty has been paid, and number 2, an order has been passed by the custom officer, and that order is called out of customs order. He is giving authority that now the provisions are no more attracted. Out of customs order is passed. Is it clear?
Sir, one small doubt, sir.
Yes, please.
If it's import from US, suppose during this IC robbery happened, what is the position of the importer as well as
What happens?
IC robbery, sir?
High seas robbery.
If we import from US,
Okay.
this IC robbery taking place outside India, what is the fate of the goods? That's goods. Is it the responsibility of the importer or exporter?
Just 1 minute. I will answer your question. This question actually does not relate to
Yes, sir.
customs,
Yes.
but let me tell you. You understand marine insurance?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Any international shipping is not allowed without insurance.
Yes, naturally, sir.
Why not allowed?
This fire, this robbery, like that only.
There can be fire, there can be robbery, there can be a situation of goods being thrown
Yes.
in the sea, jetsam goods,
Yeah.
right?
Cyclone also.
There is a situation
Yeah.
where the in charge of the vessel is having the right to throw any of the goods in the sea,
Yeah, maybe, sir.
right? So insurance is compulsory. So if there is a robbery, it will be taken care of through the insurance. Customs Act is not applicable, right? Now, another question from your question itself. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Say, for example, you are buying something from USA and what you have purchased is 100 tons, right?
Yes, sir.
This is purchase. So the documents which you have, the invoice and other documents, those are for 100 tons,
Yes, sir. Naturally.
right?
Yeah.
Now there is a robbery and 20 tons lost in the process.
Yes, sir.
What you receive is
80 tons.
80 tons.
Yes, sir.
Now the problem is your documents are talking about 100 tons. What you receive is 80 tons. How much duty will be payable? Duty is payable on 100 tons or 80 tons?
80 tons. Sir.
80 tons.
Why?
It is only cross Indian territorial water only, sir. That's what I'm asking.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
since the duty is on goods,
Yes, sir.
and how much goods have entered in India?
80 tons only.
So on that, right? Now let us change our situation. Now you have the document for 100 tons, but what actually is received is then what will happen?
One or two only, sir.
One or two.
Pay duty on 102,
Yes,
right?
sir. Yes.
Again, rationale is same because the duty is on
Yeah.
goods.
Good,
Right.
sir.
So if more quantity is entering the goods, then pay the duty on the excess quantity also. I hope you got the answer.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Now, in relation to import, there is exception. There is exception. And what is that exception? If goods are brought from outside India and used in Indian custom waters, never enter in Indian territorial waters. Import duty gets attracted. What we said, that area of Indian custom water, that is only a free transit zone. Who can carry on a commercial activity there? Either government of India or a resident in India, citizen of India. So some goods are brought from outside India. Those are brought in the Indian custom waters. Those are being used there at. Such goods never enter into Indian territorial water. So prima facie, it is not an import. And if it is not an import, duty is not payable. What will happen? Here, this says, if goods are brought from outside India and those are used in Indian custom waters, never enter into Indian territorial waters, still it will be treated as an import for the purpose of duty. Import duty gets attracted. For example, big oil rigs imported, never enter into Indian territorial water, still duty becomes payable thereon. Is it okay?
Sir.
Noted?
Yes, sir. Noted.
Now, coming to export. So what is called export? Export means sending goods from India to a place outside India for being delivered thereat. In general, people will stop the definition only by saying that goods are sent from India to outside India. What will happen if you take the goods outside India and bring it back again? Will it be export? What for those are being sent? That is important. So goods are being sent outside India, but for being delivered there, if those are brought back, that is not an export, right? So for the purpose of definition, what is export? Sending goods from India to a place outside India for being delivered there at. Now, this is also a process. As import was a process, export is also a process. Now, this we are talking about from the point of view of customs. So, export begins when brought to place of export. What is the place of export? This can be custom port, custom airport, or land custom station. So for all three taken together, one word is place of export, right? Now, bringing the goods at the place of export itself is not sufficient. The next step is equally important, and bill of export is filed for the purpose of Customs Act. Export begins when the goods are brought to the place of export and bill of export is filed. I hope it is clear.
Yes, sir.
Right. Now,
Yes,
this
sir.
is the beginning. This is not the export. This is just the beginning. And what for this document is filed? What is the purpose of this document? This is filed for getting the permission from the officer so that goods can be loaded for export. Right. So goods can be loaded on the vessel or aircraft as the case may be. So bill of export is filed for getting that permission. Now this next one is export continues as long as goods are within Indian territorial waters. So here permission taken, goods loaded, but vessel is there at the port itself for another 10 days. Export is not complete. Right. Goods have left the port, but it is anchored somewhere within the Indian territorial waters. It is not export. Right. So export continues as long as goods are within Indian territorial waters. Then for customs, export is complete when goods have crossed Indian territorial waters for being delivered abroad. So there may be a situation when the goods cross Indian territorial water, but the objective is not delivery abroad. Objective is that goods are going to be consumed with somewhere within the Indian custom waters itself, maybe on the oil rig. That is not an export. See here, for the purpose of customs, export is complete when the goods have crossed the Indian territorial waters, but for being delivered abroad. If the Indian territorial water is crossed, but the second part is missing, that will not be called as export. Right? So goods are sent from India to the oil rigs which are within that 200 nautical miles. That is not an export. So for customs, then in general, export is complete when we say this distance. This is equally applicable for air also. Right? So distance is equally applicable for air as well. So since we cannot compute in the air, everything is there on the land, right? So that calculation or the distance has been given in that way. So for the purpose of customs, right? In general, export is complete when the goods have crossed 200 nautical miles. But objective should be this again. If the objective is that goods are taken out of 200 nautical miles and then those are brought back in some other part of the country, that is not export. So export is complete for every purpose. When goods have crossed Indian custom waters, for being delivered abroad. Right. So why two different purposes of the export being completed? Direct relation is with the duty drawback. If this is complete, the goods have already crossed Indian territorial water with the object of being delivered abroad, then immediately duty drawback can be claimed. Whether goods continue to be within the 200 nautical miles and another 5 days or 6 days are going to be taken for crossing that area, it's okay. Right? So as soon as Indian territorial water is crossed, duty drawback can be claimed. Okay. So this is the process of export. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So till now what we have talked about? We talked about what is meaning of the goods, what is the meaning of the word India, what is the meaning of import, and what is the meaning of export. We have talked up to that point. Okay. Now the next thing is what is called a baggage. Term is defined under section 2 subsection 3, right? So this I will explain in two parts. One is definition and another is concept. Definition is under section 2 subsection 3. So we can have a small change here. This I can remove from. Right. As far as definition is concerned, what it says, baggage includes unaccompanied baggage does not include motor vehicles. This is the definition that we have seen, right? I'll show you the definition once again. See the baggage definition. Baggage includes unaccompanied baggage, does not include motor vehicles. Okay, this does not clarify anything. I will explain. Now, as far as concept is concerned, the concept will make you understand what is the meaning of the term baggage, right? So baggage means these are belongings of a passenger. So if there is a passenger, only then there is a concept of baggage. Same goods being imported or exported without a passenger will not be treated as the baggage. And if those are being brought along with the passenger, or these are belonging to a passenger, these are referred as baggage. What is the difference? For a baggage, there is a standard rate of duty applicable. There is no classification, no specific valuation, right? All the goods will be treated as a baggage, and there is a one standard rate of duty applicable on those. Okay, so belongings of a passenger. Now, this baggage can be brought in when the passenger is coming or leaving, or this can be before or after the arrival or departure of the passenger. So when it is along with the passenger, then that is referred as accompanied baggage. And when passenger and baggage are being imported or exported separately, then that is referred as unaccompanied baggage. So when we read the baggage rules, under rule number 8, this permission is there. The time gap is also referred. How much time gap can be there between the arrival of the passenger and the arrival of the baggage? So that will refer there. Okay. So this we can divide in two parts. Accompanied and unaccompanied baggage. So accompanied baggage means baggage and passenger both enter in India at same time. Then that is referred as accompanied baggage. What happens when you travel by air? Your baggage is already in the aircraft, right? So that is accompanied baggage. But when it is a baggage in access, then your travel and baggage travel may be different, right? Quite possible your baggage is sent in advance, or your baggage is held back, that first of all you go and the baggage will be sent by the next flight. Then that becomes unaccompanied baggage. So in this situation, the passenger and his baggage enter in India at different times. That is why it is called unaccompanied baggage, right? And definition has already said the baggage never includes motor vehicles. Okay, so that will apply here as well. So definition says this, concept is this. So the concept of baggage is there only when the passenger is there. If the passenger is not there, there is no baggage. Same goods brought in India otherwise will be treated as commercial goods. Those will be classified, those will be valued, those will be assessed separately. But when those are brought in as a baggage, then there is no classification. All the goods are in one category only, that it is a baggage. So that those may be garments, those may be textile, those may be electronic, those may be anything, right? Those will be treated as baggage. No classification. All the goods are in one classification only. But when those are brought in otherwise then as a baggage, every goods will be classified separately, valued separately. Then rate of duty will also be independent. That is the difference between the baggage and goods being imported as other goods. Now I'll give you another thing for the term of baggage. Have you drawn this?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, again, title is baggage. Now, this baggage is divisible in two parts. Bona fide and other baggage. What is bona fide baggage? Articles already in use for certain minimum period. And under section 79, fully exempt from duty. Irrespective of value and quantity. Bona fide baggage means what? Articles already in use for a certain minimum period. What is that certain minimum period? That is not in public domain. That is known to the officers, right? So if goods are already in use for that much period, then those are treated as this, otherwise those will be treated here. So entire bona fide baggage is fully exempt from duty, irrespective of what is the quantity, what is the value. So when NRIs shift to India from outside India, and their entire household goods are there, no duty on that. Reason is this, right? And those who are frequent travelers between India and outside India, they know how to handle this. Okay, I'll simply tell you the easiest way out. Those who frequently travel, they know that if you can open all the packings outside India and bring the goods unpacked, all possibilities, those are treated as bona fide and no duty is payable there. Possibilities, right? And lots of practice is done, and that is also commonly accepted. Then other baggage means anything other than bona fide. Now this is again divided in two categories. So first is exempt. And then comes dutiable. So this is fully exempt. In addition to that, there is some exemption in other baggage also. So this is also under section 79. The central government has prescribed monetary exemption limits. Bona fide, fully exempt. Other than bona fide, government has prescribed monetary limits for exemption. Right. So this is exempt. This is also exempt. Now this limit is monetary. If the value is exceeding that monetary limit, duty will become payable only on that excess portion. So baggage exceeding exemption limit, that will be dutiable. And on this duty is at the rate of 35%. Have you understood this?
So what is the difference between bona fide and exempted goods, sir?
Bona fide and
Exempted goods, sir.
these are already in use. These are new articles. These are articles already in use, and these are other means these are new articles. These are fully exempt irrespective of quantity, irrespective of value. And here for the new article, there's the exemption limit, up a monetary limit for exemption. Are you getting that?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Duty-free items will be exempt. No. Duty-free items will be taken into this limit, right? But in general, nobody takes care of that amount. So whatever you buy from duty-free, generally what is bought from the duty-free shops? What is purchased? Chocolates. Who buys chocolates? Your hubby. Chocolates. He's a baby. What else he buys other with the chocolates? Yes, for the kids. What he buys for himself? Nothing. Okay. So 99% cases, the duty-free shopping is for liquor. Teetotaler. You must have made him like that. It is your duty. You must have done it. So 99% cases, people coming from abroad, they will buy good cigarettes, they will buy good liquor duty free, right? And actually that is covered within the limit, monetary limit. Okay. But When the goods are purchased from duty free, generally nobody bothers. Okay, and the exemption limits are also quite high. When we read the rules, baggage rules, you will find that as such, no problems for buying the goods from duty free shops. So this was all the basic about what we refer as applicability of customs. One point is still left. And that is stores. What is called stores? This is a stores. So stores means goods for use in the vessel or aircraft. Vehicle is not there. And includes fuel, spare parts, other article equipment, whether or not for immediate fitting. I'll give you another meaning of this. So stores. This again you can write in two parts. One part, I'll leave it for you. Definition. So definition you can copy from there. Conceptually, I'll tell you what is the meaning of a store. Okay, this is section 2, subsection 38. You can copy it from there. Conceptually, stores means all consumables on board any vessel or aircraft. Consumables, right? Now these consumables includes fuel as well as spares, right? Now this consumable includes clothes, food items, and whatever you can think of. Everything is whatever is consumable on board. For being consumed, or fitted on board either immediately or later. Whatever consumables are there, right? Say cleaning material, lots of cleaning materials required on the vessels. Lots of, and vessels are in long-term journey. So food is also there for months together. Fuel is also there running into hundreds of tons of fuel. Right. Now the difference is when the fuel being transported, then it will not be treated as a stores. When the fuel is there in the fuel tank as a consumable, it will be treated as a stores. Food items being transported commercially will not be treated as stores. Food items on board for being consumed thereon will be treated as stores. Right. So here, concept wise, on consumables on board any vessel or aircraft. This is not on, this is all. Sorry. Right. The term vehicle is not there. So this you can write here. Vehicle. It is not covered. So the concept of stores is relevant only for vessel and aircraft. And this includes all consumables on board, including fuel as well as spare parts, for being consumed or being fitted thereon, and whether requirement is immediate or in future, that is immaterial. Definition that you can pick up from there. Okay, so this brings us to the end of introduction to customs. What is customs? So customs. So this deals with levy and collection of duty on import of goods into India, and number two, export of goods from India. Now you see the relevance. What is the meaning of goods? Tell me quickly, what is the meaning of goods? Defined under section 2, subsection 22. There are 5 clauses. Which are those clauses? Quickly.
Specific.
Vessels.
Number 1, vehicle, vessel,
Vessel.
Aircraft. Number 2,
Stores.
baggage. Number 3,
Like-
stores. Number 4,
like,
currency
and
and number 5, any other.
any other kind of mobile.
Right? Then we talked about what is the meaning of the word India. Section 2, subsection 27. India includes Indian territorial waters. So I defined that separately. For the purpose of levy and collection up to this is the territorial water, but for other purposes, India extends up to 200 nautical miles.
200 nautical.
Right. What is the meaning of the word import? Import means bringing the goods from outside India to India, and that is the process. Processes, goods are originating from a place outside India. Then as long as goods are outside the Indian territorial waters, this act is not applicable for the purpose of levy and collection. The provisions of levy and collection become applicable, or you can say import begins only when the goods enter into Indian territorial waters. It continues until goods are under the control of custom authorities, and it is complete only when the goods are allowed to be removed from custom area on applicable duty being paid and out of custom order being passed. Export. What is export? So export begins for the purpose of customs act when the goods are brought to the place of export and export documents are filed, that shipping bill is filed or bill of export is filed. Then export continues as long as goods are within the Indian territorial waters, and for the purpose of customs it is complete when the goods have crossed Indian territorial waters with the object of being delivered abroad. And for every purpose it is complete when the goods have crossed 200 nautical miles for the purpose of being delivered abroad. Exceptions we have already talked about. Right. So now what is left is levy. So provisions regarding levy of collection levy of duty are contained under section 12 of the Act. As far as levy is concerned, provisions are under section 12 of the Act, and section 12 has to be read along with section 25 because that is power to grant exemption. So directly I'm taking you to section 12. We'll come back to the other provisions when it is required. So this is here. Section 12. This says, except as otherwise provided in the Act or any other law for the time being enforced, duties of custom shall be levied at such rates as may be specified in the Custom Tariff Act or any other law for the time being enforced on the goods imported into or exported from India. So all rates of duty, whether imported duty or exported duty, rates are given under the Indian Custom Tariff Act. And this act is, the section 12 is saying that unless there is an exemption, unless there is some exemptions except as otherwise provided. So otherwise provided means what? Unless there is an exemption, either under this act or under any other law for the time being enforced, because exemption can be granted under the this import-export policy also. So exemption may be there under this law, or exemption may be there under any other law. So subject to any exemption, this says duty shall be levied at such rates and may be specified in the tariff act or the other law for that on goods. It is not saying which goods, all the goods which are imported into or exported from India. And then says provisions of subsection 1 shall apply in respect of all goods belonging to government as they apply in respect to the goods not belonging to government. Why subsection 2 is given? Think of it. Why subsection 2 has been given?
Exemption to the government. Exception to the government goods.
No, that is saying that equally duty is payable. This is subsection 1 shall apply in respect of all goods belonging to government as they apply in respect of goods not belonging to government. So no exemption to government.
Okay.
Right. Otherwise, a doubt can arise that who's paying duty and to whom duty is being paid. Goods are being imported by government, right? And duties are also payable to the government. So government is paying duty to the government. Is it logical or it is illogical? Think of it. What will happen? If it is said here that when the goods are imported by the government, no duty is applicable, what will happen? A clear imbalance in imports by government and imports by another person. Isn't it? Government importing, no duty. Any other person importing, pay the duty. A big difference will be created. So subsection 2 is only a clarification. It is not subsection 2. It is only a kind of clarification that even if goods belong to government, even if the import or export is by the government, duties are equally applicable. No change, right? So now let's see what is here. Section 12. This is about levy. What it says? Unless exempted under this act, or under any other law. So exemption need not be under this act only. I have already given you example that exemptions can be allowed under the import-export policy also. So if there is any exemption that is applicable, so exemption can be under this act, exemption can be under any other law. Duty shall be levied on import of goods into India or export from India. And this is at the rate prescribed under the Custom Tariff Act. This is subsection 1. Right. What is said? unless exempted under this act or under any other law. Duty shall be levied on the goods imported into India or to be exported from India at the rate given under the Custom Tariff Act. Right. I will add something more. Rate for the purpose of rate of duty provisions are contained under section 15 and 16. This is a rate given under the Custom Tariff Act, but as on which date? Today, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, next month, next to next month, as on which date? So that answer will be given under section 15 and 16. Effective rate, as on which date? Answer lies under section 15 and 16. So section 12 says, unless exempted under this act or under any other law, the duty shall be levied on all the goods imported into India or to be exported from India at the rates given under the Custom Tariff Act. Then comes these provisions are equally applicable for import or export of goods by government. This is section 12, the main section. If you remove section 12, Custom Act is no more valid. So levy is under section 12, and if you remove this, what more is left in the Customs Act? Nothing will be left. Most important section, right? Not for the purpose of exam, but otherwise, without section 12, there is nothing in the Customs Act. Is this section clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, when we say unless exempted, exemptions can be allowed by central government under section 25. So now, section 25. This is power to grant exemptions we'll go to section 25. Prima facie, it looks a long section, but it is a very small thing. And you have already gone through GST, many things will be known to you. So this says, if the central government is satisfied that it is necessary in public interest to do so, it may by notification the official gazette exempt generally, either wholly or subject to such condition to be fulfilled before or after the clearance as may be specified in the notification of any specific description from the whole or any part of the duty, custom duty leviable thereon. If the central government is satisfied that it is necessary in the public interest so to do, it may by special order, right? Now, what is the difference in subsection 1 and 2? This is by way of notification and this is by special order. That is the difference. And actually these are two sections only, which are subsections which are only important. Rest all you can read or don't read, doesn't make a difference. Subsection 2A, this is central government if it is considers necessary or expedient to do for the purpose of clarifying the scope or applicability. So this was talking about adding a clarification in the notification or the order already issued under subsection 1 or under subsection 2. So this I'm going to explain you. Then subsection 3 says an exemption under subsection 1 or 2 in respect of the goods from any part of the duty custom leviable thereon. The duty of custom leviable thereon being hereafter referred as a statutory duty may be granted by providing for levy of duty on the goods at a rate expressed in the form of different modes. So this is not relevant for you. General exemption, subsection 6. If the amount of duty is less than rupees 100, don't collect the duty. So who's going to assess that? Subsection 7 not relevant, subsection 8 not relevant. Right? So just I'll explain you what is here. So power to grant exemption. Now this exemption, power exercisable by the central government. And exemptions these may be absolute or conditional. What is the meaning of absolute exemption? General exemption to everybody. Conditional exemption, fulfill the condition, then exemption is available, and if you don't fulfill the condition, exemption is not available. Then exemption can be partial or this can be full. Right? So two types of exemptions, conditional, unconditional, and partial as well as full. That is the absolute right of the government of what kind of exemption it is intending to allow. Accordingly, there will be exemptions. Okay. Now these exemptions can be by notification, or this can be
by special order.
by an order. Now, whatever is issued by way of notification, that is equally applicable to every eligible person. So eligible means by chance if it is conditional, then there is eligibility, otherwise it is applicable to all. Right? In this case, order is given for a specific purpose or a specific person. Here we'll write only specific applicability. Right? Notification, that is a major difference between the two. This is automatically applicable to all if the person is eligible as per the notification. In this case, even if I am eligible as per the order, but order is not for me, it is for somebody else, it is not available to me. In both the cases, what is common is public interest. So whether notification or order, this thing has to be there. Some public interest must be served by grant of exemption. If there is no benefit is given to public, No exemption. And then from which date notification is effective? Unless a date is specified therein. Unless a date is specified from which date it is effective, from the date on which this notification or order is issued. Right. Then one more point, that will be the last point here. And for that I need to clear. The central government can add a clarification in the notification or order within 1 year since issue of order or notification. What is being done by the government? It is not an amendment of the original notification or order. It is only adding, and that is a clarification. It is not an amendment. Government can amend the notification or order by another notification or order, not by this way. This is only addition of a clarification. And last point. Any such clarification will have effect, will have rather retrospective effect. Any such clarification which is added within 1 year after the issue of notification or order, that will have a retrospective effect. How much retrospective it will be? As if it was a part of original order or notification.
Super, sir.
Noted?
Noted, sir.
So this is just the introduction of the Customs Act. Detailed things will start from tomorrow.
Okay, sir.
But first lecture is the crucial. If somebody's missed this, lots of things will not be understood. Right? This is a very, very crucial lecture as of today. So I hope everything is clear.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Everything noted.
Yes, sir.
Right. Now, immediately after the end of class, spend 15 minutes and read everything now only. Don't leave it for later. Don't leave it for tomorrow. 10 minutes, maximum 15 minutes. Whatever we have done in last 2 hours, that can be very well finished within 15 minutes. Read everything. If you have a query, write to me immediately. If not, presume that it is very clear, then we'll meet tomorrow.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Till then, have a very good time.
Thank you, sir.
Good night, sir.